If I ask you who is the most successful woman in the world, what would you say? First, you have to understand the origin of feminism, right? You have to understand that this was not a culture and an ideology that came because they wanted women to have equal rights with men, okay? This was a CIA-sponsored PSYOP. Gloria Steinem was sponsored by the CIA.
Gloria Steinem is a journalist who became one of the biggest faces in the second wave feminist movement of the 60s and 70s. She co-founded Miss Magazine. Before all that, she briefly worked with the CIA. Her job was basically organizing youth events during the Cold War. In 1968, she started writing pieces about gender discrimination, abortion, and workplace issues. That's what pulled her into feminism and made her a national leader. And Miss Magazine became the first national magazine run by all women, which took her influence even further.
Okay, these protests were sponsored by men in government, a lot of them homosexual, actually. And the reason for that was simply because they wanted to tax, it was actually twofold, I would say. They wanted to tax household income both ways. And also they wanted women to, instead of focusing on their kids, which comes natural to women, right, to be the quote unquote, like I say, CEO of the household, they wanted to remove that and to have the children given to the government for 6 hours a day. Beyond 6 hours a day, plus whatever sports activities, which gives the government full control over the minds of the children.
Some people believe schools are structured to shape how kids think and behave by keeping them in a controlled environment for most of the day. The theory is that long hours and fixed schedules and strict routines make children used to authority, used to following systems, and used to being told what to think. The curriculum itself influences what kids believe about history, politics, and society, while reducing how much parents' values matter. The idea is that the school model wasn't only built for just learning. It was built to condition future adults to fit into whatever system is already in place.
This came straight from the Pale of Settlement. After they assassinated the Tsar, you had these Jewish women like Emma Goldman, who came over to America. Emma Goldman was the mentor to what's-her-face from Planned Parenthood. I'm blanking on her name for a moment.
Emma Goldman started as an anarchist activist in the early 1900s, known for challenging traditional marriage, social rules, and religion. Margaret Sanger was the nurse who became the main figure pushing for birth control access in the 1910s and 20s. They argue Sanger's birth control work was used by powerful elites as a way to control population growth, shape who has children, and push eugenics.
I'm going to say Margaret Sanger. That was her mentor. And so this was, in fact, a very radical communist movement that came to America and sought to overthrow families, family institutions, strong men and women, stands in the way of government and absolute control.
In your book, Make 'Em a Sandwich, what are some of the things that you tell the women? Because I'm assuming it's a book that's going to be centered around how women can kind of get in a marketplace, find a long-term partner, get married. What are some of the strategies that you tell women to implement to find a partner?
It's fine. I don't even try in my book to sell them a strategy or a technique. I just tell the truth. So here's the history of feminism. Here's what we were told in school. Here's actually how it went down, right? Knowledge is power. I give them the actual statistics of the fact that what was sold to you was you were going to be just like a man and you were going to be happier. Women are actually more miserable than they've ever been.
People argue that modern day feminism push women into taking on male roles while still carrying old responsibilities. To support this, they point to a few key facts: rising antidepressant use, lower life satisfaction scores, there's more single women or single parent households, and they have the double burden of working full-time while still doing most of the childcare and housework. They use these claims to say that modern expectations of women is just overwhelming.
What is the number one thing? If you find any woman that makes it and she's successful, what is she doing? She's tapping into her femininity. Communication. Women communicate more than men. I have a whole chapter on this. If you have a daughter and a son, you know this. Girls start speaking faster, and we will speak more words from men for the rest of our lives. And when you actually look, and I ask people in this chapter, if I ask you the question right now, who is the most successful man in the world? Just give me your answer. If you have to name a couple of them,
I mean, you could say like the richest guy in the world, who would be Elon, even though it pains me to say that. But
okay, yeah, no, but that's the right. You would say Elon, or you would say
something based on meritocracy, finances, and
you would
status.
say Jeff Bezos. Precisely. Everyone would say the same answers, right? Yeah. If I ask you who is the most successful woman in the world, what would you say?
That's where it gets right. I see what you're saying.
Like, what is it? Like off the top of your mind, like what are the names that come to your mind?
Yeah, it's an ambiguous. Like you're like, okay, well, are we going to go off career? Are we going to go off where?
But most people would say like Taylor Swift or Oprah.
Mm-hmm.
these women are
Beyonce.
nowhere near the richest women in the world. Nobody knows the name of the richest woman in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go about through this in my chapter. Yeah, you'd say Beyonce. I'm like, these are the names that you would say off the top of your head if I asked you who's the most successful. Nobody knows, everybody knows the names of the most, the richest men in the world. And yet nobody knows the names of the richest women in the world.
Good
right?
point.
And nobody knows the names of them. And the answer is a Russian woman. And I talk about this in my book. I'm like, nobody knows her name.
She's talking about Tatiana Kim, the founder and CEO of Wildberries, the largest online retailer in Russia. Her estimated net worth was about 7.4 billion. But the actual richest woman in the world is Alice Walton, the daughter of Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart. So she must mean successful as in created their own wealth, because Alice Walton is worth about 101 billion.
And the women that you do name actually all tapped into their femininity. Taylor Swift was writing songs about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
She was writing songs about looking for love,
Mm-hmm.
and women flocked to this. Oprah was communicating to the housewife, right? She was speaking about issues. They're tapping in actually to the one thing that actually you think they're standing against. They're the ultimate feminists. No, they tapped into their femininity and found success, actually. And women do not, when we think about success, we don't measure it in terms of finances. That's why these women, we think, are the most quote unquote successful women in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas men naturally think finances. Oh, it's Jeff Bezos. It's Elon Musk. So I do a chapter and I speak about that in my book about who the richest woman in the world is. And then the next 10 women who are the richest in the world are all rich because of who they divorced.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
So what is the picture that we're recognizing here? We don't measure success in the same terms as men measure success, nor should we. And it's important for women not to think that becoming financially rich somehow means that you are successful or that you have triumphed something in life.
And since having children, like, how has that like shifted your priorities as far as, I mean, and you can go into as much detail or as little as you want, as far as like how you've kind of prioritized child rearing versus like maybe your career and doing social media as much? Because I noticed, you know, before you were super active, you still post obviously every day, but now it's like, you know, you have other priorities. So how has that kind of shifted?
Yeah, my family is my number one priority. I would say having kids made me more secure than ever before. I just don't care about the noise.
They say modern feminism pushed women into roles that create more pressure, more stress, and more responsibility with less support. And when you look at the rise in depression and anxiety, burnout, single living, and the double burden of work plus home life, they argue these feminism changes didn't make life easier. They made it heavier. So the big question is, did feminism give women more freedom, or did it quietly load them with more weight? Are women happier today, or just carrying more alone? And do modern expectations actually help women or exhaust them? Let me know what you think. Like, comment, and subscribe to World Watch Moments. Thanks for watching.